Amazing. 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 Can anyone hear me? Yes, people can hear me. Hi everyone. Welcome to Stockholm Hardware number 21. I'm going to move this cursor away. I am not Suna. What a surprise. You might be used to seeing this very handsome gentleman, and it's me instead. Sorry, no refunds. But before we do more of that, I would like to first ask everyone for a great big round of applause to Suna for running the event thus far. He's still with us. He's right there at the door. Please, big round of applause to him. But to help him out a bit, we're switching roles a bit. So now we're just going to grab random people off the street to run the show instead. People with no experience and who have no clue what they're doing. And I grabbed the first short straw today. So on with the show then, with some improvisation. Why do I hear some magic sounds? Oh, yes. That's just me from the past on the YouTube stream. How cool is that? We're going to get to that in a second. We have a great show for you today. We have two talks. We're talking about how to build a hardware startup. So the business side of dealing with hardware. I'm sure everyone who worked in this industry knows that it's a very difficult industry in terms of monetary flow. Everything's expensive, everything is risky, and mistakes can be very hurtful, can hurt you a lot in terms of business. And investors are a little skeptical on investing in hardware because it doesn't scale as well as apps. It's not as cool as apps, but I think it's cooler. And today we're going to talk about how to make that easy for everyone. And we do have some amazing people that are going to share some cool experiences about that. Quick word about Stockholm Hardware. We're here to have a nice community of the hardware industry in Stockholm. We're trying to make this event not very formal, but very friendly. So we have beer, we have mingling, we have a lot of people, and we try to just share experiences in a way that can help everyone else. And after the show, we like to stay around and mingle. You can ask questions to anyone who's been speaking, or just ask questions to anyone you come across here, because there's a lot of great experience in this room right now. This has been going on for 3 years. We started in January 2016. It's the 21st meetup. We had some workshops. We're going to have a workshop soon in a couple of weeks. 1 week, 2 weeks? Couple of months, give or take, another workshop. They are great. They sell out very quickly, so please be aware and try to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever we post these things, because these workshops are absolutely fantastic. Around 2,000 people came across Stockholm Hardware during the last 3 years. And every time we have something interesting, that is every 6 weeks approximately, we also record it and post it on YouTube, so you can revisit some of the nicer talks. You can revisit all of them. We're experimenting a bit with tickets. This event used to be completely free, but we're trying to have a better control over who's coming, not because we don't want people to come, but because we do want to know how much people to expect and to, have a better flow, let's say. And most importantly, to not have to kick someone out if they don't fit, because this room unfortunately only fits 100 people, which often has been a problem. We would like to thank you a lot for everyone who decided to donate some money with tickets. On average, that's 29 crowns per person. So that almost covers half a beer. That's amazing. And a huge round of applause to everyone for buying the tickets. It's super nice because this is, of course, a non-profit. Everyone working here is a volunteer. We do it in our own time because we just think that this city deserves a meeting like this, and the community deserves a meeting like this as well. Speaking of volunteers, this is the amazing team that runs the show. I'm not on it. Just stand here. There we go. Now I'm on the side as well. As you can see, we did improvise the slides in the last 10 minutes. So yes, perfect, absolutely perfect. But it's great that we have people who work with us to make this show happen. And if you want to, you definitely can poke everyone here about how to be a speaker, how to join the group, how to join the community, or how you can help us, and by extension, help everyone here. Quick word about logistics. There's food in the back, there's beer in the back. You can just grab it. It's for you, including like some wraps and chips. We also have coffee, which you can grab as well. And there's even wine, red and white, if you fancy that. The event is here and here only, so don't go wandering around the building. This is the Things building, which I also work at. That is super nice. A great place for hardware startups, indeed. We're going to have a break in the middle. There was a makerspace tour at the start, so it's too late to join that, I'm afraid. And there are 2 bathrooms just outside and to the left. If you want to use them, anytime is suitable. We are live streaming right now on YouTube. You can rewatch that later, or you can watch the next event on YouTube if you want as well. And there's an archive of every single talk that you can just rewatch at your leisure. Big thanks to our sponsors, M.New, a website that sells nice kits and parts for hardware, Stockholm, the city, and most importantly, Things, the building that we're at. They offer us the room, and they're a super nice place to have your startup. I can recommend from my own heart. Before we go to the main talks, this is also a great moment if someone has a community announcement and wants to either ask for some help or share some thoughts within a minute. And I do know that we have one, so come straight, or even more than one. No, that's not you yet, right? So come along, and you can get a microphone for the minute and address the whole audience. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Bobby. I work here also in one of the Sting companies. We're called Minimera, and we develop a tool that can measure your cognitive abilities. We want all the regular woordcentrale here in Stockholm to have this tool, so that now when people think they might be getting something like dementia, or that they just want to have a check on how their brain is functioning, that they can visit the doctor, and a doctor doesn't have to do an hour-long test with you, but he gives you our tablet and you do the test by yourself, and then you look at the results together with the doctor. And we do everything evidence-based, and I'm a psychology researcher in the company, and I run a really big research study now, for which you need a lot of people to join the study, test our tool, and then you get your own results, so you'll see which is your strongest cognitive ability, and it's all super fun and super cool. And yeah, we still need a lot of people, and especially guys, to join us. So I asked if I could pitch a study here, and if you please all sign up. There's lots of leaflets over there on the coffee table. If you sign up, you book a time slot with me here in the building. You do the test 45 minutes on the tablet, and then you get your results. And that's it. Everyone who's over 18 has Swedish as a first language and has no known cognitive impairments is very welcome to join the study.
Excellent. Thanks, Bobby. The leaflets are there on the coffee table, so you can grab one and read what are you signing up for. I've heard it is fun from people here. Anyone else needs to share something? Yes, nice. Have a mic in a minute.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Stefano from My Music Labs. And the idea just came out today because we are a small startup company. We have some leftover hardware. We would like to organize a garage sale. But we're too small a company to do it on our own. It won't be attractive to other people in our organization. So if you're also a small company and you would like to organize a garage sale, maybe we can team up together, making one day that we can get rid of stuff and so people can buy it. It's also friendly for the environment, right? So maybe meet me here or drop a message to Sune and we can try to arrange this. Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot. As they say, reduce, reuse, recycle, right? And I do know a gentleman in the front of the audience that is very interested in all the hardware and accepts anything. But you'll learn more about that during his lightning talk. Excellent. Anyone else before I go on? No. But if you want to... Oh, the student want to say something.
I just want to remind people that Andreas is doing a Makerspace tour
but
at the end of the event.
Oh, there's another one. Excellent. Okay, so there will be another chance to see the Makerspace, and that's at the end of the event. So once we're done, stick around for a moment, and he will take you downstairs and show you around all the nice equipment and toys that they have. Does this include the biohacking lab? It does. It does include the biohacking lab, which is always a treat. Excellent. With that said, if you want to say something during the next event, you can always line up for a minute, or you can get in touch with us to give a full 20-minute keynote or a 5-minute lightning talk. It's easy to reach out to us, emails, Twitters. I'm sure that you can figure that out. But for now, we have our main show. Let's start with the 20-minute keynotes, and with Ben first. Welcome on stage, Ben.
Okay, it's really nice to be here. My name is Ben Chatwin. I'm the CEO of Globy Drones. We're a small startup that's been around for about 3 years now, and we're just starting to sort of ramp up our activities both here in Sweden and abroad. Just to explain a little bit about the title. Hi, Ben. Hi. Could I get you to stand? Oh, sure. Is this the live streaming? Okay. So the title of my presentation is Hardware versus Reality. And the reason why that is because a lot of the time we deal with our clients not really understanding the reality of what we deliver and what drones can deliver and so forth. Can I just press this button in the middle? Okay. So at Globy, there's two things we do. One thing is Drone Need, which is our delivery as a service. And that's when we piece together different bits of technology that are relevant for drone delivery, especially medical drone delivery, and we deliver those as a service to our client. And then the other side of our business is Identify, and that's our AI-enhanced mapping service, where we outsource collection of data, primarily for humanitarian and development use cases. We have some algorithms that are useful for our clients in identifying things at scale, and we make that available to our clients, such as UNICEF, the Red Cross, and some organizations here in Sweden also. But today, I'm primarily going to talk about Drone Need because that's more about the hardware side of things, and I think that's relevant to this audience. So this is sort of the business model of how Drone Need works. Within a drone delivery supply chain, there's many different elements that are necessary in order to deliver a product from point A to point B. These are just a few of them, and they all need to work harmoniously with one another. And a big sort of misconception out there among our clients and among research institutions and the like is that you just need a drone, and all drone companies who make drone hardware also create the rest of these elements, and it's simply just not true. We've been doing this for about 3 years now, and from our experience, it's very important to educate our clients on all the different elements that go into delivering a product from A to B. And it's also important that the partners that we work with in each one of these specific hardware environments communicates with one another, and that they know what services and products each other have. And then we also do a little bit of the adding in the sort of missing links between these pieces of hardware. And so that's where the expertise of Globy really comes in. And we're sort of this intermediary between the tech providers and our clients. So for example, right now we have a project running in Malawi. I was actually just in Malawi last week on a different project. So we have a project running this week, and they're going to be testing delivering medical devices to hospitals. So they have to do a 100-kilometer test, and it's called the Humanitarian Drone Corridor in Malawi. And then next week, they'll be working with some of our other partners to incorporate their technology in with the UTM, which is the traffic management system, and also a HR management system, which we've helped create. So sometimes I find at these talks that I'm talking about drones, and I assume people know what a drone is and what different types of drones there are out there. So I have this slide just to sort of explain a bit, because we all know about these drones on the left-hand side of the screen, but the drones really come in a range of different shapes and sizes, and that's up to us to communicate to our client what is relevant for their business, and also what is sustainable for their business. We primarily work with humanitarian and drone actors, humanitarian and development actors, and they think that they can just use one of these tiny little consumer drones and pay $3 a delivery, and that's just going to work for them, which is not the case at all. So we really have to spend a lot of our time educating our clients on the fact that they need a specific type of drone. We have to really understand the types of problems that they want to use their hardware for. And then we have to sort of do this back and forth between them and the manufacturers of the technology, the manufacturers of the software and the UTMs, to sort of put together a sustainable product. And that's the biggest challenge for for our company as a hardware or a sort of provider of hardware business. And so once again, over the 3 years that we've been working, these things are developing rapidly, and that's why I have this last picture here. This is the sort of newest innovation that I've seen, where a company in Canada is designing a drone that can lift a cargo container. And I know that I'm going to get an email in a couple of months saying that they want the cargo carrier drone for the same price of $3 a week, and that's just not going to happen. So I'm just trying to iterate the challenges that we have. A big part of our company is that we use technology for good. So we don't work with oil companies, we don't work with the military, we don't work with security companies per se. We're really focused on using drones and the additions that you can make with drones to use for social impact. And these are just some of the examples of how that works for us. I've put together a couple of slides that sort of illuminate the kinds of problems I've been talking about. There was recently a meetup for all the drone companies in Sweden. There's about 500 people who turned up, and they got shown this slide, and they all had to vote on where they think the drone industry is. And most of them voted that we were in this space between the inflated expectations and the trough of disillusionment. And that makes it really hard for companies, because we know that we're not even at the bottom yet. So we're really facing a client that thinks we're productive versus a industry that's really not quite there yet. So that's a big part of why Globee is I'm not going to say successful, but semi-successful, where there's a lot of drone hardware companies that are failing because the industry is just not ready for that kind of technology yet. So this is it's a hard wake-up call for a lot of companies, but it's useful to have an understanding of this. So this is sort of what I've been describing most of my talk, is that we try to put two technologies together for sustainable solutions. And quite often that's just not happening in a lot of other companies. There's drone hardware companies that are buying up technology, selling themselves as complete services, and it's just not meeting the demand that's out there, and it's just not sustainable. And this is something that really, it makes it really hard for everyone in the drone industry. And so we're constantly having to educate and to work towards sustainable solutions and make sure that our partners really understand the problems that they're trying to engineer hardware for. These are just a few challenges and opportunities that we face. I haven't talked a lot about bureaucracy, legislation, and guidelines, but this is very, very stifling for the drone industry, and rightly so. Things are getting better. We have the likes of the US, they're surprisingly doing a very good job and setting some fairly stringent guidelines. And in Sweden, we have a system that's unfortunately a little bit too restrictive at the moment. And they're in the process of developing guidelines, but the EU guidelines will probably beat them to it. And then we'll have EU guidelines here in Sweden. So that's something that we're holding on to. Managing expectations of technology, I've talked about that a lot. And the last note there is very important, which is transitioning from pilot projects to scaled operations. A lot of the time we sort of quote for scaled operations because that's what the client is sort of looking to produce, but then they want that scaled operation delivered in a sort of a pilot-sized package. And that's just not viable as a business, to be constantly doing pilot after pilot after pilot. And so transitioning from selling sort of pilot projects and proof of concepts to scaled operations is a huge challenge. It's something that we're sort of we're getting closer and closer. But the lead time for these types of projects, based on the expectations and based on bureaucracy and legislation and governmental actors who are obviously intertwined into the mix, this makes it a bit tricky. In the opportunities column, a little bit harder to come up with, but I think I've done okay. The way that Globee has positioned ourselves means that we have the freedom to choose what technologies are relevant for our clients. And so the outcome of that is that we put together really high quality projects. Whereas if there's some sort of sad stories in the humanitarian world, especially, where they pick one hardware provider and they have to they're very limited in the choices they have, and then they fall on their face and their drones crash, and it's very, very sad. But so that's a great thing about our position. We have the ability to connect different technologies, learn from different technologies, and take advantage of those developments. And this is a thing that our partners really love about us, is that not only are we talking to them about their specific technology, but we provide insights into the technologies that they're going to be integrating with, and so that they can sort of improve their technology based on things that they weren't necessarily thinking about, that they can sort of adapt for the industry as a whole. And then the last opportunity there is translating international experience to Nordic markets and to European markets in general. So we've done a lot of tests in Southeastern Africa and Southeast Asia, where bureaucracy and legislation isn't restrictive, and the governments we work with have been a little bit more open to allowing these types of pilot projects. And so we can leverage on our learnings from these projects to bring back home and implement them here in Sweden, which we've done in a few cases where we've transported medical devices in the archipelago and done some sort of small tests here in Sweden. So that's my presentation. Thanks very much for having me. It's a really cool event. It's nice to see so many people turning up. And I guess we have a couple minutes for questions, if anyone has any. That's a very, very good question. One of the first questions that we ask our clients is we ask them to sort of explain to us the problems they're facing. In Africa, where we work, the current methodology of getting medicine from one place to another is either by car or by bike. And in the rainy season, it's impossible. I was just in Malawi last week, and it's the rainy season now. And it happened a couple of times where we had to take sort of kilometers longer route because roads were collapsed or simply impassable. So there are definitely better alternatives. And once we have things like underground trains everywhere, I think that drone technology won't be suitable. But there's also it's a really good question, actually, because there's a lot of companies out there who just want to use drones to solve every problem. And yeah, there are better ways. So, but for the types of problems that we solve, it works.
You mentioned a restriction connected to state regulation on drones.
Yeah.
Can you mention a few of them that are limiting your work?
Can you repeat the question? You're asking about some of the restrictions of the legislation bureaucracy. The biggest one is beyond visual line of sight flying. So currently, if I fly a drone here in Sweden, I have to be able to see it, or I have to apply for a very expensive license that enables me to fly my drone beyond visual line of sight. So as you can imagine, when you're trying to deliver products, that they need to leave your sight. And this is a very, very tricky problem. And a lot of the technology isn't sort of up to speed. It's very expensive. So that's one piece of legislation. And I'm just trying to think of I guess the most limiting factor is the sharing of data. It's very, very restrictive unless you work with the military, unless you work with emergency services, which we're just about to start doing. But this is a bureaucratic process that we're engaged in now, and it's taking quite a lot of time. So, and not just the data that you're collecting through images or these kinds of things, but the flight logs and where your drone is at a specific time. That's very, very important data. And so I would say those are the two biggest stumbling blocks.
Just following up on that.
Yeah.
I assume there are lots of different legislations in different countries. You're working on a couple of pilots, but your name implies you have global ambition, right? So
Right.
are you taking that into account when you're building up the processes and systems now, or
Yeah.
you based on your pilots and do that later?
So he's asking about how did everybody hear the question? Yeah. So for drone delivery, it's a bit different. It takes a lot longer for us to establish those pilot use cases. But for our other service, which is Identify, which is our mapping service, we partner with local companies in those countries because they have the understanding of the legislation. They have their licenses. They know their flight systems. They know quite often they know the legislators. So that's how we get around that. We really rely and we put those partners through a sort of stringent process. We ask for all their papers and documentation and this kind of thing. With drone delivery, it takes a little bit longer and we have to work more closely with the industry partners and with the client in that country. And because we normally work with the UN and these large humanitarian organizations, they're inevitably sort of hand in hand with the government, so we get around those sort of things.
You kind of work outside the legislation sometimes because you have the government behind you.
Yeah, to some extent. It's especially in Africa. I would say, I don't want to say we work outside the legislation, but there's some gray areas in how things work in Africa. But that's a cultural thing. That's just how to do business there, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
When you started 3 years ago, what was your kind of motivation to create a company? I imagine that was at the top of this.
Yeah. So I didn't create the company. My CEO, Helena, she created the company. And it's a really good question. So when I asked her, why did you create this company? Both her and I have a humanitarian and development background. We've been working in this industry for several years. Helena really liked photography. She liked using drones to capture photography. And then she thought, why not use the drone as a tool to impact positively humanitarian and development situations? So fast forward to now, it's been quite a ride for her, and she's an impressive woman for sure. And we started off with sort of mini consulting projects, research projects, ramping up to bigger consulting projects and bigger research projects. And then now we're actually doing 50, 100, 500 square kilometer mapping projects. We're delivering hardware all over the world. So yeah, really cool.
All right, nice. Looks like the random questions. So thanks a lot, Ben.
I'll take you up.
Thank you. No, thanks a lot, Ben. Yeah. And of course, you can leave it afterwards as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Absolutely great. As a drone flyer myself, I do know that it's sometimes a challenge to work with, people walking their dogs or people on horses. It's always, you share the airspace, but you also share the ground space. Yeah. So it's fun. Thanks a lot. And now we're going to have Tobias from WSI, also with some great insight. Welcome, Tobias.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. That was hi. Is the sound okay for the video? Okay. Hi, my name is Tobias Söderlund. I work with a company called WSI. We should have that picture now. WSI is a consulting company that helps companies to produce and develop products and services. So a few of the products that we have done that you might have seen out there in the real world is Jail Doorman, for example, for ASSA ABLOY. You can see also Husqvarna's robotic lawn models we've been part of developing, or the flick button, maybe the BLE button you have seen. So we do around 100 projects per year. All of them are in some way connected, I could say. So my presentation is from a perspective where the hardware is connected, you could say. I don't know how many startups in hardware that is successful, but if you look at connected devices, you can see that around 26% of the projects are deemed a total success. And this is quite low, I would say. And if you borrow a bit down in that figures, you can see that 36% of those projects are deemed a total success from an IT or technology perspective, and only 15% are deemed successful from a more of a business perspective. And if you think about that a little bit, you can maybe understand that maybe this is a tech hype around connected products. So let's say IoT, to really talk about the hype, and that it lacks some kind of business sense to be able to do something. So what we're trying to do at WSI, at the business area that I'm working in, is to attack the 15% and make that higher, to increase the chance of success. If you look at the typical journey, I think everyone thinks from the start that the journey is something like that. We have a brilliant idea, we plan for it, we execute, we launch something, and it's a total success. The typical journey is an iterative chaos. You have some kind of idea, you think you have the answer, you test something, you fail, you do something new, you iterate, you pivot, you do some MVP, and you backwards and iterate and so forth. What we're trying to achieve is some kind of structured iterative process to do this in a good way. And this is a bit of a problem when you are in hardware, because it's harder to do iterative processes in hardware because it's more expensive, and it's something that you really need to understand what you're doing and when. Because hardware is more complex. It's far more complex than software. You need to do tooling maybe in the production facility. You need to have partners in factories. You need to think about regulations when you start to connect things. Customers accept imperfections far less in hardware than in software. You don't have the luxury of doing a version 1.0 or even 0.5 or 0.1 and then iterate it forward. You can do some versions, but you are limited to the vehicle that you produce. And you get less chance to get it right. You do on hardware maybe not every month, but maybe every second year, something like that. You need to make that right. And for me, it's a bit strange that the hardware business hasn't really looked at the way digital products has been developed over the last 15 years. If we all remember the dot-com bubble, 9900, something like that. What happened after that is that people in that industry started to use more design methodologies to be able to make sure that they find the right need, the right thing, the problem to solve. But that hasn't really happened in the hardware business, I would say, in the same scale. But it's more important in the hardware business because you have less chances to make things right. So you must be much more resilient and sure that you have the right specification when you hire someone to build your product, to do that yourself. So let's talk about that a bit. So when you have an idea, it can be, have you heard about push and pull? Raise hands. So push is when you have some kind of innovation. It can be that you have a very cool new radar technology or something like that, which is quite innovative in the market, or a drone for that matter. And when you have something which is very innovative, you try to find its purpose, right? You try to see what kind of problems can we solve with this innovation. And you create some kind of value proposition. You try to get consumer insights with different tests that you have designed, and you iterate and you learn. At least that's what you should do. The other way is a pull scenario, when you have seen some kind of problem at the customer side, some kind of pain, or that you are in a situation where you can create some kind of gain maybe. Then it's time to find a technology that suits that need instead, and iterate that until you find the right solution and the right business model to make sure that you solve that problem. When we in WSI, we like to also walk the talk a bit, because it's much more fun to develop products that scale instead of just creating product that is very of high quality. So we follow a process. We have three cornerstone. We start to find the right problem, because if you know the problem, you can easily solve it, right? The second thing is that you try to build the right thing, because a problem can probably be solved in many different matters and ways. And the last thing, we need to build the thing right? And to do this, we use design methodology to help us guide us. We are inspired by design thinking in the first phase, where we try to understand the need of the customers. And the need can be different ways. It can be that you're stressed about a competitor that has some kind of leap in technology or something like that. It can also be that you have found a new pain, as we discussed before, that you can now solve from new innovations out there. But there is a need. Then you need to understand why and what these needs is about, to understand and empathize with the customers and the users, I mean. You need to define those and start to ideate solutions around those needs. And when you have that, you can start also to build maybe your first prototypes. And prototypes here is not a factory prototype. It can be a Raspberry Pi, it can be a low fidelity mock-up, it can be a sketch on a paper, something that you can start testing with a customer. And when you have that, you can start to iterate. And then we are inspired by the agile startup iteration. So we build something that are designed to test the idea that we have. And the idea is not only technology, it's about the business model as well. It can be which kind of sales channels do we need to have to make this a success? What kind of price model do we need to have to make this a success? Should we go through a distributor, or do we want to sell directly? What is the different parts of the business model that we need to test? Then we design the test about to make sure that we find a market fit, or that the idea is bad and we need to pivot to a new idea or just tear it down. When we have a market fit, then we can start to structure the company according to that market fit and that business model, not before. And then we can also start develop an offering or a product to suit that need. And this, I would say, is the way modern digital companies has worked, and some hardware companies as well, of course. But it's much more applicable to a hardware business than anything else, because it's so easy to do something wrong if you don't know what you're doing. If you apply that to development, you can see also that it's quite easy to be agile in the software world, right? If you have a pure software product, you can iterate, you can change direction quite easily, quite fast, but you can't do that. I haven't seen many hardware developments that are agile, really agile. This is a waterfall business. You need to define something, prototype it, certify it, produce it, right? So it's much more sensitive. So how do we learn? There are many ways of learning. One thing we should learn is that the screen is not as wide as I thought. But anyway, the most fastest way of learning is napkin sketches, of course. Just show something for your customers or users. Is this a good idea or not? Then you can work with a mix of these to understand and have different kinds of tests. Pilot studies is reasonably slow, but maybe very needed if this is something very novel from a technology perspective, that you need to understand if radar works in this environment that we're trying to do, solve something in. Canvases is quite popular. Have you heard about business model canvas or value proposition design canvas, for example? It's very good tools to just describe your idea and start to extract hypotheses around that, assumptions, and test that with your customers and users. But when you have an idea then, what we also know is that the third thing you need to do is to expand that idea. You need to expand it in all angles. And why is this important? Because if it's, especially in hardware, because if you start to build something, you need to know not just 2 weeks in advance, but maybe 2 years in advance what to put on that hardware. This is, of course, a compromise. You shouldn't build a luxury bus when you need like a small sports car or something like that. But you need to do it with your eyes open, that compromise. So what we do is we expand the idea in all directions, the business model way and the technology way. And then we can also look at an offering structure. And what is an offering structure? Have any ideas? And offering structures allow you to also expand and evolve your business model over time, not only the hardware and the actual features on it. So you can start with your first idea and the number one, but to make sure that you can also expand that into new and add more functionality as you go. We're going to look at 2 examples of this, which I think is very good. The first one is Verisure. I have a Verisure lock in my house. Their first iteration, the first number one, was a new brand called Verisure from the old Securitas. These were the first new market entry. But they made sure that they have a business model that allows them to add new things to it, right? They can add everything from mouse straps to cameras to smart home devices to water leakage sensors, and also a very nice lock here, Yale Dorman, which we talked about before. But it's very easy when you have if you have starting from scratch and you haven't expanded your idea, to maybe even have a price model that when you launch number 2, make it visible for the users and the customers that number 1 was too expensive. And then they lose faith. So you need to really understand both the technology side, but also expand the business side to see, okay, what is my next 2 years among this? So I don't lock myself in a corner. A less good example, I'm a customer to this example, so that's why I always bring it up. It was a big brand in sound that made a wireless multi-room speaker quite early in the market to be when they were very stressed about Sonos. And what they did was that they were so stressed, so that when they tried to add more functionality, which the community demanded, like Google Assistant and Alexa and so forth, they couldn't fit it. It was too small vehicle for them. And what they did, they released a new brand instead, 2 or 3 years later, that was not backwards compatible. So now they have customers, this is an old brand, that had bought a lot of wireless speakers and systems from them for thousands of kroners. And that whole user base is now pissed off because they didn't expand the ideas from the start from a technology perspective. They were just stressed. So some kind of takeaways from this, but 3, which we think is extremely important, especially in hardware. 1, know for whom you are solving a problem and what problem you're solving. 2, define, validate, iterate. But MVPs in hardware is tests. It's not finished products. But iterate the test, learn, and make your idea more and more better. Find the value, because if you don't find the value, everything will be too expensive. We have so many customers coming to us and saying, we want a cheaper gateway or something like that. And we ask them, well, how do you know that? And it's very seldom that they can answer that question. And 3, dream big, but start small, but relevant. That's our 3 takeaways from today. Thank you very much. Any questions? In the back.
You made a quick point about agile hardware development or the lack thereof. My question is that you would have to go through the whole cycle, but you have to find a way to do it more quickly. How do you do agile development?
Okay, so the question was first if I promoted agile in hardware, and second, if so, how do I do it, right? So no, I mean, you should be as agile as possible, and you should use there's a lot of tools out there to be more agile than before, yes. But it's quite hard to be agile if you do an industrialized product, if that is your goal. And from that perspective, it's quite hard to be agile in that. You can still use agile tools, of course, when developing, but to be truly agile, I would say, is more or less impossible in hardware. More questions? Yeah.
For manufacturing, do you also have like contacts in China or Taiwan, or what's your coverage in that last part of services?
Yeah. So the question if you had any contacts in Asia in different factories and so forth. And the question is yes, we travel at least once per month from our company's perspective into our partner factories in Asia, where we have different products that's being manufactured. We also have a company within our group because we are part of a company group which has a factory in themselves that we can use. So we can, if you want to contact, we can fix that. Anything else? Sorry? That I will leave to Lars, which will be here all over China, he says. Okay, he's a colleague of mine. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I might have a question.
Sure.
So, would you recommend putting a little more hardware, even if you're not like a little more parts in your device, even if you don't have the firmware to implement these features on release date, so that later you can activate it with firmware? Like, would you recommend that as a solution to a customer?
So I guess I will repeat that for the video. So the question was if we can create headroom, and should create headroom in a device to further future releases or firmware, right? Generally, you should try to do that, but with open eyes, as I said before. Depends if this is a battery device that will live for 10 years, maybe that's a bad decision. So it depends on the use case, of course, but you should do it with open eyes. Yeah. Okay. Easy. What depends? It's very hard to answer generally. Yep. Yeah. It has nothing to do with technology. 2/3 of those problems are organizational problems. Not the right competencies, not the right structure in a company, and not the right business model. It's very seldom that the technology is the reason for it. That's why I don't talk about technology today. Yep. Oh, I think it's probably a mix. I haven't gone into that detail into those figures, but I would presume that, as I said before, I don't see the same kind of maturity in using maybe design methodologies to understand exactly what problem you solve in hardware business as I see in digital business. So maybe that's some part of the answer.
What's the reason for that? Why haven't these methods been
Oh, now I'm on deep water, but I can guess. The digital industry was through a fire, right? When the bubble burst, and they needed to see how can we not do that again, more or less. The hardware business guessing is that now when we see more and more connected devices, and we talk about IoT instead of like you do the 99 that I'm working with internet. Now we see I'm working with IoT, which is equally stupid to say. Maybe now there is a more reason to start discussing why you do things, and because also of the convergence between digital and physical as we see. I think my time is out. I will be here for a short while, but otherwise I thank you for today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tobias. Could I get my deck back up? Yes, I can. Amazing. Can I? Yes, I can. And that as well. Perfect. So those are our two keynotes. Thanks a lot, Tobias and Ben. You said that you'll stick around for a short while, which is great because we also still have a lot of great things happening later today. We have 4 more interesting talks and a little bit of mingling at the end. But before that, we're going to take a short break. Let's say 15 minutes. So it's now time o'clock. It's 5 to 7. There's going to be an alarm in 5 minutes, but don't be alarmed. That's just how this building works. And 10 past 7, we're going to resume. Feel free to mingle. There's more beer. There's more snacks in the back. You can grab Ben and Tobias as long as they're here, or of course, grab anyone else. See you in 15 minutes. Okay. 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 Any minute now, people will start noticing. I mean, it's usually a good sign that it's very difficult to get to the crowd at this point of the event, because that means that the networking is doing fantastic. So I almost feel bad about, exactly, I almost feel bad about interrupting everyone, because it is really the main goal of the show, right? To have a nice mingling session, to get to know someone, and to exchange some experience. There we go. I think I'm actually coming through now. Isn't that nice? Great to hear everyone being so enthusiastic about making some new friends, let's call it. But the show must go on. There's going to be an opportunity to do some more mingling after the event. And also, there's going to be another Makerspace tour after the event. So if you do want to see all of their cool toys and you didn't get to do that before, then I recommend staying until the end. And then following Andreas, I will definitely point to him at the end. Yeah, he's at the back, and I will again point him at the end of the show. But let's continue with the show. We now have Ahmed. He's already in front of me, so we might as well go first, giving a short 5-minute talk about his experiences. Go ahead, Ahmed. You want to use the whiteboard, right?
No, actually,
You're going to skip that.
yes.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ahmed. I am from Inconova, and we do drones for underground mines. So I have a drone here that is like a sample of what we do. I have 5 minutes to talk, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. How many of you are planning to start a hardware startup? Okay, a couple, and I'm going to focus on you, those who are for that upcoming journey. I want to have a mantra that sticks to your head, 3 words that stick to your head in your journey starting a hardware startup. Offset the suck and find the crack. 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 Hardware companies suck. They suck in many ways. They're harder to scale. They don't turn investors on. You say to the investor, I have a hardware company. Where's the software? That's how it happens. They want to have the software part. They want to have something that's easy to scale. It's harder to produce output when it's hardware. It's harder to have iterations. Of course, you're going to iterate in the process of having a startup. And it's harder to sell, and with all the logistics and after sell and maintain and stuff like that. So it sucks, and you know about that. And my other colleagues or my other co-speakers have spoken about that. So how to offset it? One, all these bad things act as a protection for you because it's not that attractive and it's not that easy to start. That's one. But then there's 2 types of offset. One for the large volume producers, and if you intend to have a hardware startup that has like in the order of hundreds of thousands of units to be sold or millions, then the keyword, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I don't have a successful startup. I don't call my startup successful, but we have not failed. So I have, you need to listen to me. Outsource all the crap. Outsource everything. If it can be outsourced, outsource it. So outsource shipping, outsource distribution, outsource production, outsource everything. And don't tell me Amazon that does not outsource. You're not Amazon yet. So outsource as much as you can, except for that soft little IP part. If you can keep that, that would be for the investors as attractive as the software, and it can be scalable. Now, in Inconova, we don't do high volumes. We sell tens right now. And the key there is the third word that I want it to be a part of your mantra, cracks. Find the crack. You see an insect. An insect is not a big organism, but it does find its sugar. And it does find its sugar by slipping into the cracks. You are small, so try and find the crack. focus all your limited resources into something that just fills that crack and start from there. If you have a strong crack foundation, you can start from that and expand. So you can fool the investors and say to them, we have such a big market, but in your head, you need to focus on your crack. Focus on your crack, focus on your crack. By the way, another word for a crack is niche, but I don't like using the word niche. Crack, okay? Another benefit of the crack that we experience with in Inconova is that it acts as a protection. So if an insect goes into a crack, you're an insect. These guys there, you're going to start a startup hardware. You're an insect. Think of yourself as an insect. Think of biomimicry in that sense as well. When you're in the crack, the big guys cannot follow you. First, they're not interested in cracks. Second, they're not small and agile and smooth like you to follow you inside the cracks. So that's a good thing. Finally, once you are inside the crack, it's hard to get out. The crack gets used to you. It builds a love relationship. The clients like you, and you gain trust, and they're sitting in the crack and no one is caring about them. It's find your niche or find your crack. It's going to be a love relationship. I think that's 5 minutes. Or? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ahmed. Yes, when you asked if it was 5 minutes, you had 11 seconds on the clock, so your timing is impeccable. I've heard that you're going to have to scoot off, so if you want to get in touch with Ahmed, you can grab his business card. I think he left them somewhere, or you can grab him really quickly, but he is running away. And now let's continue to the next person, which is Jin. Welcome, Jin, on stage.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Wow, this was loud. Hope you just take this a little bit closer. Okay, really nice to be here. My name is Yin Moen. I'm going to talk to you today under the headline, Women in Hardware. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story. I was asked before this meeting, how did I end up in the hardware industry? And then I asked myself, yeah, that's a good question. So I will kind of tell a little bit about my story and what if it was a conscious choice or not. A little bit of what I do today, and then some words about why inclusion and diversity actually in all businesses, as hardware as well as other businesses, is important. So a little bit about my story then. If we start here in the bottom, it's kind of about my CV, which I realize it's about hardware in some case all the way. My first degree was a dance teacher degree. I received that from the School of Dance at now what's called University of the Arts, which is actually based here on the KTH campus. But I also has a Master of Science in Engineering Physics here from KTH, and I did my my master's thesis within haptic interaction, and that's what you see up there. So when I did my master's thesis, I was programming virtual environment, a 3D virtual environment where you can collaborate on distance in this virtual room. Now it seems like, wow, that's what you do every day. But I mean, this was in like 2002, 2001. So it's quite a few years ago. What was special with that was that this little robot arm generated force feedback. So you could actually feel what the other person was doing in the virtual environment. It was really cool. It was equipment from a Swedish, or the sensor, or the robot arm is from Sensible. But the software was from a Swedish company called Reach-In. And KTH had just bought 2 of these devices, which cost like 500,000 Swedish crowns. So, and I was the only one that could actually program that at the whole institution. And my supervisor, she was a psychologist. So we were collaborating with this human-computer interaction aspects of this. So I got to do all the programming and hardware stuff, and she was doing the more behavioral science work. And after that, I actually started right away doing my PhD here at KTH. And it was what you call a graduate school, several different kinds of PhD students that get together in a thematic group. And it was about aesthetic learning processes. So then I used both my background in dancing, but also in engineering. And during that project, we developed this box there. And it was based in my dancing experiences. I wanted to understand how we can interact with computers, but based in how people and humans actually perceive the interaction, how we communicate using our bodies, and not how technology works. So my perspective has been all the time to I love a technology. I want to interact with technology. I want to use technology. I want to make useful things with technology, but I still want to do it on my terms, on the human terms. After that, I also worked as a researcher and project manager at what's called now RISE, Research Institute of Sweden, and I work with energy behavior. How can you change people's behavior when it comes to energy consumption? And this house clock there is an energy meter. So instead of only having like numbers and how much kilowatts you are consuming, you can have that illustrated in another way. I also worked with Internet of Sports. That was also at RISE. And that was about how you can use IoT technologies to increase the business potential for different kinds of sports, both to measure performance and decrease performance, but also for audience to have another experience of sport. Yes, and this was my company I started. I want to show you a few more slides about that. So I get back to that. And today I'm working at Internet of Things Sweden, which is a governmental program for IoT solutions within public sector. And I will tell you a little bit more about that as well. So I would say that this has not been like a conscience chose to be in hardware industry. It just become that way. So a little bit about all the things that they said about having a hardware startup. I agree. It's hard. It's difficult. You can't be that agile as you can with software. You have to decide on what to do. If you do something wrong and you have, like we had, 11 different plastic parts that we should make toolings for, you don't just change that. So this is kind of the process for me, what's led to this product that we called Oribu later on. I started with my perspective that I wanted to interact with humans or with the computer as a human, not only as a finger pressing buttons or a big ear listening to things. I wanted to use my whole body. I worked together with an interaction designer called Johan Sandsjö, and we created the first concepts of this device. Then we have different kinds of very simple prototyping here. But when we then come to this concept and started to industrialize it, we had a company called Intelligent Machines, which actually did the mechanical or the different kinds of prototypes, more industrialized or working functional prototypes before we actually put it into manufacturing in a factory in China. So this process took a lot of years. For the total of the company, we raised like 3 million euros, 30 million Swedish crowns, both from private investors, loans, and friends and family. We did get it out on the market. However, the time went quicker than our ability to develop the project or the product. So when we did this kind of design for the product in 2007, I don't know, and if you even remember how the market looked like in 2007. It was when the iPhone was released. It was before App Store. Nintendo Wii was released in December 2006, so it was before anyone was talking about making movements and playing games, for example. So what happens when we got the product out on the market in 2012? Suddenly everybody had a game console in their pocket. Everybody had learned to playing games more casually and more mobile, and everything was connected. And also the question here, should you put things into your device which you're not actually using from the start? I would say no, because it's very expensive to produce. We had a gyro, which we actually didn't use. It cost more money, and we're coming to production. Every cent counts. So, but that's the tricky thing with the hardware. Don't put too much things in. But if you suddenly get, like this great application and you want it, then you will probably regret it. But you never know. So this product Oribu, it was actually targeting to tweens. We found a niche in the market that there were no gadgets for girls. Most of the gadgets were very boyish. And so this was kind of our business opportunity that we saw a lack on the market. I think that if you look at the market today, it's a lot of different projects that are more equal. It's more inclusive. You have a bigger diversity in products. So that's really nice to see. I'm gonna run a little quick here just to get to my last slide. So what I do today, I work, as I said, as a program director for IoT Sweden. And we are a governmental funded organization hosted by Uppsala University. And we are funding projects within public sector that are working for societal good, so trying to solve societal challenges. So it's always public sector actors that are applying for money from us. And they are working together with companies, both big and small companies, to solve different kinds of challenges within the public sector area. So we are projects that are about playgrounds in the public space, accessibility, circular symbiosis, industrial symbiosis, different kinds of flow solutions within for traffic, for garbage, for bicycles, healthcare, for example, and even air and water quality. So these are all IoT projects that will create some kind of value in the public sector. So that's what I do today. And this was the really topic, actually, inclusion and diversity. For me, it's a must. It's not an option. And the reason why it's a must is because of, one, the business opportunity for companies. If you don't see the big potential, both for customers, but also for your team, you will actually be a loser on the market. You will not see the big opportunities that's out there. Thinking a little bit broader, getting more experiences into your teams that have other perspectives that your typical maybe team will give you better ideas, and they have a bigger network, because network and collaboration is everything today. It's also that today we are solving very global, complex issues. I guess you have seen this. This is in Swedish, I apologize, but I guess you recognize this. The global goals, they are 17 global challenges that the UN are working on, and all of the projects that we are funding. And if you're applying for governmental funding today, you have to, in one or another way, write how you're approaching these goals. Oops. Can I have one more minute? Thank you. But if you are going to solve these global issues or challenges, we really need to collaborate, everyone, and not only between, like sexes or genders, but also between countries and branches and different kinds of disciplines. Also, the last one is role models. If you haven't seen an example of something, it's really difficult to just figure it out in your own. So having more people looking differently, speaking differently, having different opinions, that will open your minds, and it will be more normal to have this diversity. So for me, it's really important so that's one of the reasons why I'm really here today, just to tell everybody I'm still in the hardware business. I've been in the hardware business. Actually, I don't see that so much different from any other business. But if you've never seen a woman in a hardware or representing a hardware industry, you will think that, oh, there's no one there. So I think that's really important to just state examples. So on these issues, but also on the gender and the inclusion diversity issue, sometimes it can feel a little bit hard to get there. But I will actually now cite Michelle Obama or Barack Obama. I read Michelle Obama's memoirs, Becoming, and she said that this is the kind of way that her husband, the president, looked at it when he thought it was a little bit challenging to solve all these global issues that you have to do as a president. So you may live in the world as it is, but you can still work to create the world as it should be. So that's kind of my wish for you, to think that even if you think it's a little bit difficult and hard sometimes, you should still hope for or work for creating the world how you would like it to be. So that was my 10 minutes and a few more. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, I will stay here. Yeah, one question. Yeah, I always get the questions. Yeah, it's all the technology is in the side ball. It's about 7 centimeters, like a tennis ball big. You have a motor there, an ARM7 processor. So it's really a tiny processor, and the code is like 10 kilobytes big. So the memory was 510 kilobyte memory. It has an accelerometer and a gyro. So there was a small display in the back, but you actually got instruction for how to move through the ice. So there were 7 LEDs in each ice that were giving you directions of moving up and down and back and forward or turning and those kinds of things. And then you have kind of games that you actually were playing, and you get your high score and so on. And it was not connected, so it was not, unfortunately, IoT device. We had an antenna in one of the very early prototypes, so you had a USB there, so you could download your results to your computer and then upload new games. So it was a robotic device, so to say. It can move back and forth on this leash. Yes. Thank you.
Super nice. Well, you say that unfortunately it wasn't connected. I feel that there's going to be a time when people say, fortunately, this isn't connected. Excellent. Speaking of connected, now David is going to connect us to whatever he's going to be talking about. Everyone welcome David Rosenbeek on stage. And here I have a microphone.
No, I think I'm close. Okay. Whew, all right, 5 minutes. This is going to be fast. So, ready, set, and go. Okay. Hello, my name is David, and I'm going to put this in full screen. There you go. I represent the organization called ELAB, and for well-established reason, I am called ÖL there, which of course stands for Överste Lödarnisse. So today in my presentation, we have a message directed toward persons or startups at KTH that are looking for an electronics laboratory to work on their hardware projects. So if you fit that description, maybe ELAB is something for you. So what is ELAB? ELAB is a non-profit, student-driven electronics laboratory located here on KTH campus. For those who can read the map, it's located that direction, like some 100 meters. We are around 200 members of students, PhDs, alumni, mostly from the electrical engineering program, but also other programs like computer science, mechatronics, and so forth. Since we are dirt poor students, we are kind of experts in making electronics projects cheaply, and we do so by accepting donations for companies that give us tools, components, so forth. We also order a lot of stuff from China, and we even bundle our PCBs designed together in a large sheet so we can get them very cheaply. So what are we working on? The primary use, let's see if the video drawing, yes, are school projects. So this is the second year students working on their project, some kind of wireless energy transfer thing. A lot of activities. You can also see this is how the lab looks like. There are also a lot of personal projects going on. For example, there was some weird dude doing a self-driving potato a while ago. Yeah, where is technology heading, right? And we also have a drone club, a lot of drones today. We make our own drones, primarily racing drones. We go out in the weekends flying. We tried the winter, it sucks. Yeah. So what can ELAB offer? ELAB has an electronics laboratory, equipped with oscilloscope, power supply tools, 3D printers, etc. We also have a large storage of components for sale. We even have a parts library online where you can search for whatever you're looking for. Yes, but most importantly, ELAB can offer you Sven. Right. He's an electronics guru. He's amazing. He knows everything of electronics. We can offer me. I'm doing radios, FPGA, software stuff. And we can even offer you this guy. That should probably do the brain scanning thing. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say here is community. ELAB has a great community, a community with knowledge and experience in the electrical engineering field. There's a lot of people to ask around for help. For startups, it could be interesting finding people for consultant works or even becoming co-founders or something like that. So, yes, who can join ELAB? Unfortunately, this is the downside. We can only accept persons that are somehow affiliated with KTH. The ground rule here is if you have a KTH access card, you are allowed to join ELAB. Startups from KTH Innovation are very welcome to join ELAB, but please respect that ELAB is primarily for personal projects or school courses. So please, if startups want to join us, just contact us in advance, and yeah, we will make it work. Let's see. Ooh, I'm well off time. So this is the last slide. This is how you reach us. Email, website, and we also have a Slack channel for those with a KTH email. Final note, if there's a company here looking for electrical engineering students, maybe they want to donate something or organize an event, yeah, please contact us. Whew, thank you. Oh, 1 minute to go. Question?
Something interesting in the news? No. Oh yeah, if anyone else wants to give a 5-minute talk, you can still do it today. You know, just come up stage, plug in your computer, or don't. You can use a whiteboard. You can use body language, or a 1-minute talk. We're here to serve. Or you can consider doing that during our next meetup, which is going to be on April the something, around 6 weeks from now. And the topic's going to be something very interesting. Planning for it. There you go. You're now connected and on screen. On screen. On screen? On screen? There we go. On screen. It's funny, you know, it's a startup meetup. So, I mean, sorry, it's a hardware meetup. So, of course, the hardware fails. That's how things work. Exactly. It's going to work now. Every time. Yeah, sometimes. Did you try plugging it in and out again? Yeah. And turning it off and on again?
Yeah. People are keeping harassing me for the Mac.
But
so
you're,
But I can do this if I just have. Sorry.
I'll try to get this.
If you can just get one computer with internet access, I can do it from there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about an exciting subject called CE marking.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Do you guys know what CE marking is? Wow, cool. Okay, some of you do, some of you don't. So all products that are being sold in Europe needs to be CE marked. And this is a lot of products. And in order to CE mark a product, it's a quite cumbersome and complicated process that takes a lot of time and usually costs a lot of money, unfortunately. And that is sad because people have a lot of smart ideas and want to get them out on the market. So we have created a web service helping small companies get their CE marking approval much faster and much easier. And what we have done is that we have, or maybe I should tell you how you usually do today if you need to see a market product. Usually today you need to hire a legal consultant or a lawyer, and they will look at your product, they will analyze your product and write a report about what requirements apply to your specific product. Because depending on what product you're going to sell, it will be different requirements. And this is a really, really hard process. And we have built a system where we ask you a couple of questions about your product. And depending on how you answer these questions, the system will automatically analyze and find the specific requirements for your product. And I was thinking maybe I could show a quick demo so you know how to do.
One computer with internet access, we have that.
So if you go into ce-check.eu, you can get an account for free. And with this account, you can do a complete CE marking, but it will be a little bit of hassle. You know, like with all these freebies, you can do it, but it's not fully automated. If you want to fully automate the service, you have to pay a little for it. So I will see if I can log in. And let's see if I remember my login here. Hang on. Oh, wow. Thanks. I'm not sure if I can do that at the same time. Talk and type at the same time. That's too much to ask.
Try not to. Oh,
Whoop.
that went bad.
Did it crash or?
Where did you go?
I don't know.
But you're in a tab on the top.
On the top.
Yes. Right. Click.
There. Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect.
It's my American keyboard. It does.
So yeah, I just want that.
it's
Yeah.
shift.
Okay.
There you go.
Perfect. check.eu.
Try not to speak loudly while tapping the password.
Yeah. What is?
And try not to save it in my browser. Because I might be a nefarious agent. Not now. Well, it says invalid.
It says invalid, yes. I'm pretty sure it was this.
I hope you don't have any special characters because of the American keyboard layout. Might be confusing. That's the safe. Well, maybe you should improvise. One more try, right? One more try. This is the last talk of the day, so and we still have actually quite a long time on our standard schedule. So no stress, no worries.
So, are you logged in with
You could use my Google.
Can I?
Yes.
Okay.
What could possibly look at all the accounts that I have?
Which one do you want?
The top one.
Super hot.
Yeah, that's the video game I worked for. People are gonna make fun, but that's the video game I worked for. I know the title is a bit weird. It's pretty good. We won an award actually.
Congratulations! You now have a free account at CE-check.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. So you see how fast it goes. Amazing.
So first we have a little thing to guide you through the service, but we will skip that. So once you're here, you just create your product. It's super easy. You give it a name.
Actually, I will
Cool.
product in like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
This might come in handy.
Cool product. And then you just give it a category. And then press save. And then you choose help me find which directives my product should comply with. So here we're going to start asking a couple of questions about your product. So, and it will only be yes and no questions. And you will be able to answer these without knowing anything about CE marking, as long as you know your product. So let's see, we're just going to do, I'm going to show a little like this. So does it have any radio communication? Yes. Does it contain a battery? Okay. If you already know this, you can also show this, shows them manually. So let's see, we choose it like this and save. I'm not going to do this whole process. I'm just going to show you a little quickly about. So here we will guide you through this process. And for each step you have finalized, it will be a green check mark. And when you have finalized all these steps, you're done. You can sell your product in Europe. So it's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. Not too much, right? So if you're in need of CE marking, please give it a look. And otherwise, feel free to contact us if you need help, and we will help you. You'll find our contact information on the webpage, and it was ce-check.eu. And contact us. Cool. Thank you so much.
Nice. I might actually use that account. Looking forward to doing that. And I think that is it for today, isn't it? We can go back to the deck, which now I have here. Not here, not here, not here. And we're back. Perfect. So that is indeed, as I can see, that's not accurate, is it? So that is indeed everything we have for today, unless someone else wants to hop it on stage, but it doesn't look like it. Feel free to stay and mingle. There's still some beer left, actually, and some chips, and maybe even a wrap, I see. And get in touch with us if you want to talk next time in approximately 6 weeks. Don't forget that there is a Makerspace tour with Anders, who is still in the back and waving right now, but not immediately, right? Or immediately? I mean, it could be immediately, and then you can come back and see if there's still any beer left, or in a couple of minutes, but don't lose track of him. You're going to be standing by the door. Perfect. Thanks for coming. It's been super nice to have you, and it's been thanks a lot for all the speakers. Thanks a lot to Lars and Sarah for helping with the organization, and to Suna, big round of applause. You can show yourselves a little bit more. Come on. There you go. Don't be shy. Excellent. And thanks to me, apparently. And see you around next time. Have a great evening and mingle a bit. See you around.